You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K23. Myself, Mamutsi, alongside the one and only Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, how you doing?
Oh man, beautiful Friday evening here in the States. Real name, no gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all good. All good here. All good.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. Where it wasn't so good. We're breaking down the NBA playoffs, and it wasn't so good for my Boston Celtics as they took the loss in Atlanta, 130
Ooh.
to 122. Now, here's what's interesting to me. Back in 2008, a rookie 8 seed Atlanta Hawks took the eventual champions, the Boston Celtics, to 7 games in the first round. And Al Horford was on that team. And he said before the game, we can't underestimate this team. The Hawks are way better than we were back then. And guess what the Celtics did? They went in tonight and they underestimated the Hawks. They weren't playing with the necessary effort or energy level needed to win them the game. And some big shots from Trae Young and DeJounte Murray down the stretch secured the win for the Hawks. What did you see in this one?
We got to give the Hawks credit. I thought the Hawks really put together a nice game plan. They really came back home, played well. Huge offensive contributions from Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. And they just, they had a really solid game plan. Bogdanovich, they made shots, played well in front of their home crowd. I was just really surprised to see Grant Williams back on the court.
I was going to say, he finally made it into the rotation.
Yeah, he had 14 points, a couple rebounds or so. Brogdon was Brogdon. And it was great to see. He had a 9-man rotation tonight. So I was happy about that because now that gives me the confidence to know that they have the depth, or at least they have players that he knows that he can go to, the coaching staff there in Boston. And so that was good. However, give Atlanta credit. I mean, I thought they played well. They shot the ball well. They did a really nice job. They shot, almost 50% from the field.
Trae had 32, DeJounte had 25, but contributions from Bogdanovich.
Yeah, and when you make
Bay off the bench 15 each, and Clint Capella chipped in 10 points, and nice scoring across the board. They got it done.
Yeah, and listen, when you're making shots, Mo, right? When you're making shots, like the Atlanta Hawks were tonight. I mean, they shot like 50-something%, 55, 56%, right, for the game. Okay. And then when you're making threes, Mo, and that's a huge thing. It really is. It's a huge thing. When you're shooting threes and you're shooting it at a clip, and they shot over 40% tonight, now that's a game changer. Okay. And you expect that type of shooting or production at home as compared to on the road. But I thought they were very solid. Okay. On both ends. But I'm sure Boston feels, 130 points, Mo, that's a lot of points.
Yep, and
so they're going to have to shoot.
That suits the Hawks a lot more to play that higher pace, high scoring games. That suits
That's right.
Atlanta. The Celtics need to lock in on their defense. The Celtics had a good shooting night as well, 21 threes, but that was kind of front loaded in the very first quarter. They were red hot and then kind of trailed off after that. Game 4 in Atlanta on Sunday night. The Celtics are going to look to get back to winning ways. Their defense needs to step up. But speaking of defense, the New York Knicks put on a masterpiece. They held the Cleveland Cavaliers to 79 points as the Knicks took the 99-79 win. Man, I saw that scoreline. Felt like I was back in the early 2000s. A defensive masterclass from Tom Thibodeau's side. The Knicks did a great job. I think the first half, Cleveland only put up what did they have in the first half? It was something crazy because you look at the halftime score and it looked like it was meant to be the first quarter. So they did a great job. The Cavs just couldn't get cooking, and quiet night for Darius Garland. He only had 10 points. Evan Mobley only had 10 points on 10 shots. Wasn't ideal. Didn't even get to the free throw line once. However, from the Knicks, they got contributions with 5 players scoring in double figures. They had some great play coming off the bench with Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickley, Isaiah Hartenstein, Obi Toppin, all contributing solid scoring numbers off the bench. And Jalen Brunson, team high, only 21, as it was a defensive battle. What was your takeaway from this one?
Well, the first thing, Mo, is when you're, and I just want to talk overall. When you play during the course of the regular season, Mo, how many times have we said here on this show, and you hear it in the basketball community, the playoffs are a different game.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it last night with the Sacramento Kings. You can feed off the energy of the crowd when you're at home. And hey, I want to say this. I know everyone's been talking about Sacramento's crowd, but let me tell you something. The atmosphere in New York, the energy was amazing. It was simply incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to overcome, Mo. Okay, when you are the visiting team. Why? Because you have to control the tempo of the game. Now, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because of the following. When you're playing on the road and you're playing in a playoffs, you have to be responsible and value every possession. You know, these guys took 33 threes
Mm-hmm.
and they made 7.
Yep.
That's irresponsible basketball by the players. Okay, Mo, some nights, you know, your jumper is feeling good, Mo. You make 2 in a row, you might have a heat check.
And
I understand that.
it would have been a lot
But when
worse had the Knicks not scored only 10 of their 33.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But when you don't have it, Mo, you have to find another way to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You have to find a way to get it done. And they didn't do a good job of doing that tonight. They really didn't.
I mean, it's tough going in there. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back. I think the Knicks did a great job of weaponizing kind of their big men because Jarrett Allen was trying to help a lot. So when he was going across to help, they were trying to get looks on the inside. My highlight of the game, though, was in the fourth quarter. The crowd was going crazy. They were chanting Derrick Rose's name, and D Rose made an appearance late in the fourth. Obviously, you're very close with Derrick. How was that to see him get all the love from the fans?
Well, it is. And here's the thing I want to say about Derrick. You know, Derrick's been in this league for 15 years. And, you know, the kid is just, you know, he's an amazing kid, right? Not just an amazing basketball player. He's an amazing kid. He's an amazing person. And his professionalism, how he has handled this situation, Mo, has been
exemplary.
You know, it's one of the greatest things I've seen. But I'm so happy for him. The Knicks, they have a true professional, and that's what it's all about. Sometimes, Mo, you know, everyone says they want to do everything for the team, and then when it doesn't go their way, and then first thing they do is ask for a trade, or they do so forth and so on. Well, here's the thing: like, okay, he was out of the rotation. It's not because he couldn't play, Mo. It's because they found a rotation that worked for them this year, and you know, it is what it is. But you know, Mo, he's been a pro, so it was great. It was great appreciation by the crowd. I mean, that atmosphere was phenomenal. I was like, wow, I should be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get on a plane and go out there. You know, that's how exciting it was. Great. So, you know, good for the Knicks, but they got a quick turnaround, and they have another game on Sunday and an early start there. So it's going to be a quick turnaround for those guys.
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. in the UK. So that's going to be, 1 p.m. in New York, even earlier for you. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that. And the final game of the evening, the Denver Nuggets won on the road 120-111 against the Timberwolves to take a 3-0 series lead.
Right.
Series is almost all but done. I was watching that, and, you know, the Nuggets were up, and anytime the Timberwolves got close, the Nuggets just built up their lead a little bit again. So, you know, the Timberwolves did get it, I think, within 3 points at one point. But I think they're just outmatched. I would have loved to have seen Jaden McDaniels in this series had he not been injured by punching a wall, because I feel like he could have helped. But, you know, I just think Denver, just talent-wise, everything-wise, with the exception of Anthony Edwards, are just outmatching the Timberwolves.
Well, you know, the thing that stood out about this team is exceptional balance. You know, I think all their starters scored in double figures. You know, the kid Bruce Brown came off the bench. You know, he was in double figures. And when you look at this team, I mean, they have balance, right? They have scoring from Murray, and then they go to Jokic, and then, you know, Michael Porter Jr. from the perimeter. So, you know, Caldwell Pope is a very respectable shooter. You got to stay home with him. So you like what they did. I like the brand of basketball that they played on the road, right, Romo? They were very responsible how they played. They didn't panic, pressure. You know, they just played a brand of basketball that you say, you know what, this team understands. You know, they were like 40% from three. You know, they took the three when it was there. So I just like how they played, and they did a really nice job.
I did enjoy it. I think the playoffs are really going to start for them in the next round. Those were tonight's games. Not too much to say on them. Not too much drama like yesterday, and not too much close action where the kind of details make up the margins. But let's look ahead to tonight or this evening as we get underway early with the Sixers and the Nets, who I think we covered off pretty well yesterday in terms of how that series is going to go. However, I believe Joel Embiid will not be playing in that game tonight. How does that affect the series? Because I believe that the Nets could have the chance now to win one here at home and give them a little hiccup.
I was wondering, I didn't follow it today as closely. I got kind of busy today with family and so forth. But I thought it was interesting that the Sixers announced today that they were going to hold him out regardless.
Yeah, and
I thought that was interesting.
The NBA announced there'd be no suspension for either him or James Harden.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. Hopefully he's okay. I mean, Mo, all right. I don't want to take a deep dive into it. You know, this whole load management thing, Mo. I'm trying to understand how this works, right? You know, you see it during the regular season, and then Mo, now when you say things like, remember Mo, when you played through things in the playoffs, okay? You would say, and you would hear things like, well, if this was a playoff game, they would play. But you would hold them out because it was a regular season game.
Yeah.
Well, now, Mo, you have to.
It's only a first round game, BJ. It's only a first round game.
Oh, okay. Now it's only a first round. Okay. Is that what it is now? So I can't recall so many players missing. I mean, key players, right? Missing time in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, this is like
we've got Embiid, we've got Giannis, we've got Leonard, we've got Paul George, we've got Ja Morant. Like the injury list is piling up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a.
And what I didn't say about the Celtics game tonight is Jaylen Brown had a very quiet night. I wonder how much his broken hand or the cuts in his hand are affecting him because he cut his hand on some glass. So
well, hopefully he's okay. I will say this without knowing anything. It's always tough to play at home, and he's an Atlanta kid. So I remember going home. It was always so hard because you have an unusual amount of tickets and people who want to see you play when you're at home. So hopefully he will bounce back and take care of business. But it's always tough when you go home. But hopefully that's not the case with his hand.
Do you think the Nets can steal game 4 at home against the Sixers with no Joel Embiid?
I do. Well, anything is possible. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out how do you get past the Kawhi Leonard situation and put together a game plan for the playoffs that quickly.
We'll talk about them in a sec. We'll talk.
They're
the next game.
And then you have Ja Morant. You have Ja Morant who's missed. Then you have Joel Embiid. Now is going to be out. So this is all new. So do I think they could win? Absolutely.
Do you think they can make it a series though? Or is it just a token win?
Well, I have to do this. I think this is probably the respect I have for the game and the players that play this game and these coaches. Mo, one game can change a series. And you saw that we were reminded of that in the Golden State game.
Yep.
Okay. Game 3. Now they're in a series. Okay. Everyone, you heard a lot of chit chatter of, this series is over, Now they're in a fight. So one game can change the series. You get one, Mo, you got to get one before you can get to 2. So anything can happen. And at some point, Mo, I will say this. Someone's going to come back down 0-3.
Wow. Never been done before. We might see it.
It's never been done before. Mo, it's never been done before. But someone's going to do it. Okay. And, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen in the series. I'm not saying that. But at some point, Mo, it's going to happen.
Well, you mentioned Kawhi Leonard. He's out for game 4 as well. He missed game 3 of the Clippers versus the Suns. Do you think that this is the Suns' chance to take the 3-1 lead on the road and then return home to close it out? because we did see a fantastic game from Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook. And in the last game, one thing we didn't talk about was there were a lot of fouls. Everyone wants to talk about the referees in the Kings and Warriors series, but there were a lot of fouls against the Clippers that might not be called fouls with different referees and if they allow a more physical style of play.
Well, you know, Mo, you know, we tend to focus on, you know, numbers, and then you can present the numbers however you want to present them. You know, my experience has taught me the following. Is the most aggressive teams get the calls. And you have to establish that during the course of the game. And you have to establish that during the course of the season. You know, if Mo plays a certain brand of basketball during the regular season, it's only human nature to say that's how Mo plays.
Mm-hmm.
Mo plays a physical brand of basketball. Okay. And the referees will play that. The players will adjust to that, and you'll adapt to that. And then when you get to the playoffs, you have to learn how to play through the physicality of the game. You know, Mo, I love the playoffs because it resembles how you play, right? And you have to play that brand of basketball, and you have to demand that your teams meet the mental toughness and the physical toughness that's necessary to play. And that's what, and the Warriors, to me, you know, Steve Kerr, he said it in the press conference, which I was like, wow, this guy is a phenomenal coach. He said, we have to be tougher. And then after game 3, okay, you heard Coach Brown say, hey, they were the tougher team tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't complain because the game is tougher and they got calls and you didn't. Why aren't you getting the calls?
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons you're not getting the calls, Mo, is because you didn't meet the physical presence that was necessary that night. Along with the physical presence, you got to be mentally tough as well. So the physical and mental toughness that's necessary, you have to match that so that the referees will say, okay, I got to clean this up because these guys are playing too physical. That's what I love.
Yeah.
Meet the physical, whatever the opponent is bringing, you meet that, and then force the referees to say, okay, guys, let's clean it up. Now you're talking. But if one team is more physical than the other, they're going to get the calls. Why? Because, Mo, the referees at this time of the year, here's a little secret. The referees don't want to be the ones to determine the outcome of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want that. And what they want to say is, man, this game was very physical, but it was a fair whistle. If you if you know how the game is going to be called, you meet that challenge. But what ends up happening is, if one team is more physical than the other, then Mo, they more times than not will get the benefit of the call. So that, to me, is what's absolutely necessary when you come into the game. Can you meet that wherever the game is going to be played at?
Well, we've got the next game as Milwaukee versus Miami. Giannis Antetokounmpo is listed as questionable with a lower back contusion still, and Wesley Matthews is out. Giannis did do some individual work before practice today. However, given that he didn't participate in practice, it seems very doubtful that he is going to be in the lineup for tomorrow's game. But I believe that the Milwaukee Bucks can still handle business, even though they're going on the road to Miami to play that game 3 matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's possible. They had a very convincing win, and I think conventional thinking would say you're right. However, Mo, you tend to play better at home. So I expect a better turnout, especially after I don't know what that was in game 2.
That was horrendous. I don't
know what that was in game 2. So I expect this team, the Miami Heat, to have a bounce back game. I expect Coach Spo to get his guys. I mean, give those guys credit. They have to be feeling good about themselves. Why? Because they went down there and they handled business. They went and stole a game down there in Milwaukee. And now they have to hold serve here at home, which is a very difficult thing. So there's a lot of pressure on the Miami Heat to win tomorrow night, because if they don't,
it's
advantage
done.
back.
It's done.
Advantage back to the Milwaukee Bucks. And they have Giannis coming at some point, whether it's tomorrow or the next game.
Well, the final game of the night, the Memphis Grizzlies and the LA Lakers tied at 1 apiece, going back to the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles. Obviously, we've spoken about Dylan Brooks and LeBron James. We've talking about all the other stuff. Who's the key player that you're going to be watching in this game for the Memphis Grizzlies?
Well, Mo, I don't want to duck that question, but I will say this, Mo. Again, it always boils down to me in playoff series when you get these unlikely contributions, right? You've heard me say that, and our listeners have heard us.
They got that in the last game from Xavier Tillman and whatnot.
Exactly.
But the reason I asked that question is I think that this game here, Jaren Jackson Jr. has to really come out and set the tone, given that he's an all-star, he's a defensive player of the year, but on the offensive side, he's really got to get going. Try and take Anthony Davis out of the game.
They definitely gonna need him, right? But when you get contributions for people you don't expect or anticipate, now that opens up the game for everyone else. And the reason I say that, Mo, is because now they've already played 2 games. Everyone knows the players of each team. Okay. So we already know who's going to get the most touches. I think, Mo, the obvious is, hey, Jaren Jackson is probably their number 1 option right now, especially with.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I ask is because in the last game, for example, Xavier Tillman outscoring and outplaying Anthony Davis. How much do they make the adjustment? Because we all know the adjustments they make for superstars. They change roll coverage, they change the defense. But when a guy like that goes off in the next game, are the Lakers looking like, okay, we can't let him score? Or is it just like, okay, we're going to continue our game plan, and if he gets shots, we're going to live with it?
Well, here's the thing. I respect Coach Ham and what he did, because everyone will say, oh, okay, Xavier Tillman outplayed Anthony Davis. Okay, on the surface, you look at the numbers, what he had 18 and 9, and then what did Anthony Davis have? He had 13 and 9. Okay. But here's the thing you have to respect about the NBA, and especially when you get to the playoffs. You got to live with something.
Yeah.
You got to take away something. Now, Xavier Tillman was open for a reason. I didn't see like a one-on-one matchup where they were like isolating Anthony Davis and saying, go to work, big fella. I didn't see that. Now, maybe on my television, they didn't show that part of the game. Maybe they blacked it out here in LA. I didn't see that. What I did see was he was open. That was the guy that they said we're going to live with if he scores. And to his credit, he did score. Okay. Now, just like on the other side of the basketball, Rui Hachimura is open for a reason. He's open, right? I'm going to make sure I take away LeBron James. I don't want him to go bananas with 40 or whatever. Anthony Davis, we know he's a load. He's going to be featured in the offense. We got to live with something. Well, we're going to live with Rui. And Rui is knocking him down right now. Okay. Now, here's what I think the most important, getting back to your question, the most important part of this game for them in game 3, talking about the Memphis Grizzlies, is going to be this kid, Tyus Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tyus Jones is the one player on the floor that could dictate and control the tempo of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Lakers don't truly play with a lead guard. LeBron James handles the ball. And LeBron James doesn't play downhill like he once could for 48 minutes. He does a little bit of everything. He still puts up the numbers, but he doesn't just play downhill anymore. Tyus Jones, if he can dictate the tempo and force the tempo of the game to suddenly where the Lakers have to play faster than what they want to play, I think that's the key to the game. Now, Jaren Jackson can run all day. Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, those guys are capable of getting out and playing. At some point, Luke Kennard may be a guy who can have a 20-point game. I think he had like 13 or 14 in the last game.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a number of guys. And then let's not sleep on our guy, Mo Muncy, a.k.a. Roddy.
Shout out to David Roddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So at some point here, one of those guys, they're going to need one of those guys to have a 15 or 18-point game. And then if Tyus Jones can dictate the tempo. To me, when I play and I watch the Lakers a lot because I live out here in LA, the Lakers are all about tempo. If the Lakers can play their game where they get LeBron James, force you to double, then they can shoot open threes, and then play this sink defense or cover, sink defense where Anthony Davis kind of roams around and block shots. That's the Laker brand of basketball. They've been very good since the trade of playing that brand of basketball. However, when you you force them to play up tempo. Schroeder is the only guard, in my opinion, that can play that brand of basketball. But that's not LeBron James' game anymore. That's not Anthony Davis's game anymore. That's not Reeves and those guys. They more can execute in half court. So the guy I'm going to look out for, because you're playing on the road, is you have to play a different brand of basketball. That's the thing that's been surprising. Like, I was watching Cleveland tonight. I didn't understand what Cleveland was doing. They were shooting all these threes. Well, yeah, you can shoot them at home, but you don't do that on the road. And I think Tyus Jones, if Tyus Jones comes out and has a strong floor game, not necessarily he has to score. If he can control the tempo, I think that increases Memphis's chances tremendously to win this game. However, it's easier said than done, because the Lakers are going to get that little extra boost of playing in front of their home crowd tomorrow. And LeBron James and these guys, I mean, look, they'll be ready to play. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we know what our guy did, Dylan Brooks. He's already stirred up the crowd. Everyone will be fired up. They'll be booing him every time he touches the ball. So I just think they need to really come out, establish in the first quarter that they are there and they're going to dictate the tempo and force the Lakers to play their brand of basketball. If they do that, I think Memphis has a good chance to win that game.
Well, let's wait and see. We're going to be right here back tomorrow. It's a very brief episode compared to our usual standards, but it's all well and good. An early night here. It's 5:45 in the morning. It's a blessing for me.
Yeah.
I usually
Mo, you look fabulous.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. It was Eid, had a beautiful day with the family in the traditional attire. You know what I'm saying? Just out here looking fresh. It's a young brother out here. It is what it is. Game's the game. If you didn't watch this on YouTube, you missed out on the fit. That was sensational. So subscribe on YouTube, share with a friend, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And most importantly, you guys know the vibes. Get buckets.